Goller, and today I'm here to talk about Damrex, a spiritual commodity I developed together with H+Corp, which sponsored the project. It's quite a complex project, which included several disciplines like art, humanities, design, politics, religion, and so on. Not only in the research process, but also in executing the project in the end. And that's probably why it's interesting today in the context of the theme, the expanded designer. After I give you an overview about the project now, Nick Hausdorff, who's sitting here, from H+Corp, will tell you something about their view of the project as a corporate sponsorship organization who funded the project. But before I start, I want to share some experiences with you I had, which might make the importance of interdisciplinary for me more visible. You can see here on the screen Narrative Environments, which is a course at Centre St. Martin's, in which context I did this project. It deals with, you can see, spaces or places and narrative theory, and contextualizes or gave the framework of the project. But what is a narrative environment? It could be defined like this. It has a form, like you can see, a content, and is intentionally created to deliver a certain kind of story to achieve a certain kind of awareness within the audience and the target group. I mean, this is a broad definition, but if we think about that design is somewhere, it has a form, a content, and people realizing it, like a target group, and for sure there's an intention behind, then we have parameters which could make a designer quite powerful, but also responsible if he's in charge of them, in charge of all parameters. But I experienced a little bit like that, a little bit different. If we now think that the design brief is not made by the designer, and we now think about the parameters, space, form, content, target group, you can reduce the designer's influence on that massively. For sure, it depends on the exact structure of the company and the designer's position in particular, but it is reduced to a certain kind of percentage. So who is in charge of the other part? Who designs the other part? This is the question I'm really interested in. And if we say that the designer, I mean, this is just an example. How could it be? So, who are these 80% on the other side? Is it the corporate a company who wrote the brief? Is it their trend researchers? Or is it their neuroscientist department? Is it even the government? The government's neuroscientist department? So, what purpose do they have? That's a very interesting question, I think. And if designers want to get back the responsibility and the power they have to collaborate with these 80%, they have to collaborate. Designers need to work interdisciplinary. They need to get involved in the other part. I mean, I don't consider myself as a designer just because I can use Photoshop and Illustrator, right? So, so there are plenty of tools people can use to design, right? And, well, this brings me to my second point. If you take the creative form follows function serious, then the function is telling you the form, the media, the look and feel. And this is often something a designer by itself alone is not capable of. So, if the function needs a writer, you need to organize a writer. If the function needs actors, scientists, philosophers, you need to organize them. That's how I think designers can get back the power they had in former times. I think we need to expand the term design, like Beuys did in art. So what about my purpose? I was interested in the financial system, its power and its influence, its crisis, its products. So throughout my research process, I came across Max Weber's book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. For those who don't know him, Max Weber is a German sociologist, economist and lawyer who lived like 100 years ago. And Weber explains in this essay how through the Reformation of Martin Luther, rationality influenced the way Western capitalism has developed. He says that through an ascetic lifestyle and continuous work from the proletariat, which was required in order to still get God's grace, because it wasn't any more possible to confess in that time. This lifestyle was for Weber the key driver of the organized work in the system how we know it today. It's a very interesting book. I really recommend to read this. So why did we have only in the Occident rational harmonized music, rational architecture, all these phenomena? This is what he was interested in. But back to my project. So I defined Paternoster Square to be the place for my project, where on one side you can see the stock exchange, and on the other side, where the photo was taken from, you can see St. Paul's Cathedral, the symbol of the Protestant Anglican Church. So I decided to tell Max Weber theory to the financial workers in that area. So I found my target audience. But the theory by itself was a bit dry. So to make it more touchable, I personified it and created a story which connects the origins of capitalism with our situation nowadays. Because if systems or institutions speak to each other, they only speak to each other in form of people, right? So the question was, how would they interact if we would have Protestant Church as a mother and capitalism as a son? And, well, the story I created in form of an epic church drawing was like that. You can see, hold on. Here. So you can see, on the bottom you can see Martina Luther, which she's seduced by rationality. So the seduction scene, Protestantism seduced by rationality. Then the second stage, the birth of capitalism, witnessed by two angels, regulation and deregulation. Then the third stage you can see lying on the stock exchange building, capitalism, the crisis and decadence of capitalism, right? And then in the end you can see the fourth stage, therapy and building, the situation now, right? So I was asking what would happen if mother and son will meet again after a long time. What would they tell each other? How would they solve the situation? So they're sitting on a table and think about what to do now. And this was the start of developing our product. So to sum it up, if capitalism is essentially created by spirituality, then of course we would have to change spirituality in order to affect any thought of systemic change, right? Then our question was, how can we even approach such a powerful question and where to begin? This was a big question. So of course, perhaps today we wouldn't call it spirituality, we might call it neuroscience, which is like micromanaged spirituality in a way. But the idea remains the same. And this was the beginning point of the project. We wanted to design spirituality. So what I did, I tried to find who's also interested in that same thought of thinking. And I found out that most of the government or corporate or medical institutions of today are in some way trying to work on the modification of behavior and thought in one way or another. Even, of course, if they do not explicitly say that to you. Yeah. So, surprisingly, I was contacted by H+Corp and found them to be the perfect partner. They were nice guys, very interested in what I did, and had the right connections to make things happen for me. So, together we spoke to pharmaceutical companies and inspired some studies which found that there was a disease that nobody has identified so far, which affected a great deal of people within the financial sector, right? And like every other psychological disease, this disease, which is named HCD, which stands for Hyperethical Compulsion Disorder, of course does not just exist, but it has to be identified by a range of symptoms. Of course, we had to help a bit with the studies, but in the end we did it for the greater good, and everybody would be happier. So this is how we discovered HCD, which made a lot of people suffer, right? So you can look up the symptoms on our website, and I'm sure you will agree. In the next step, we had to explain to people who suffered from this disease that they were in fact not doing very well. So how we did it? So together with pharmaceutical companies, we created a pill, a medication to combat HCD, and we named it Demorex, right? And this is the product. So look it up if you like. Look for the website and order if you like. You can order them. There are 4 different kinds of pills for 4 different strengths of the disease. And but how could we bring the personified story and the pills together to the audience? Throughout my research process, I realized how hard is it to approach the chosen target group, the investment bankers, because I had, even with H+Corp as a partner, not enough money to buy champagne and prostitutes for them to approach them, right? So I choose a play as a public live performance at Paternoster Square to play out the undesired child. Here you can see it. So the last stage of the epic drawing, when Mom meets his son again, this was the right tool to get their attention. And I casted, where you can see in the red circle, I casted 2 actors who were playing out the story. One was capitalism, who was like a 27-year-old banker, and one was the mother, Protestantism. But how to connect the performance now with the pills? This was the question. So suddenly, on the square, a woman and a young man, these 2 people, the 2 actors, they're having a strong argument in front of the London Stock Exchange. So while in the same time, here you can see them, right? This is my capitalism, and the other actress, she's a very good actress. She's the Protestant church, and they enacted really, really strong, and people were queuing up, right? So the visitor experience was like that. They first got the play, the performance, which started suddenly for them because they had lunchtime during that time, and